all sorts of liner papers, and you use them for different reasons. Here in the next job that I'm going to do and take you along with me, it's in a house from 1890, and these walls are bad. They're pockmarked, they've had paint problems over the years, and I'm going to be using the liner paper or non-woven liner paper for two very good reasons. Number one, yes, the paint could be, let's say, suspect, since it might have gotten a coat of paint 60 years ago that was substandard paint, and the shrinkage tension of the wallpaper could find that weakness and loosen the paper. The other type of liner paper that I use most often is called blank stock liner, and that is unlike the non-woven, which is a synthetic blend of natural fibers and synthetic fibers. Blank stock is just plain paper. It's very much like craft paper, only it's manila colored, or even newspaper. Just very, very absorbent plain paper. Very cheap quality paper too. Now I've put up here some of the names of these British companies that make these brick pulps, and these are the materials. When you read the instruction sheet, they say the material should be cross-lined, meaning that you need to put an absorbent blank stock liner underneath them. The first thing I needed to do in this very old house with very high ceilings and actually a narrow hallway was to set up a little bit more elaborate scaffolding than what is normally needed in a modern house. Other than being up higher than normal, this section of the hallway was just like everything that you've seen before. I had to go around a window, I had to do an inside corner, and I came out and I'm heading towards the first archway. I want to get the point of the scissor exactly at the point where the two lines meet, because most people's eyes go to that area right there to see how it was done. Here I'm going to use my blade, the middle of my blade, to cut the excess off, leaving 1/4 of an inch going up onto the next surface. So now from the other side of the archway, I use my scissor to make 2 nick release cuts and start to work the material up the other side of the archway with heat gun and smoother. Really saves you time in the long run because you won't get called back over popped seams above archways, and you get a better reputation for having a job that looks as good as the day it was done 3, 4, 5 years later. A match where the two papers join each other or actually run into each other. Now here is an actual piece or scrap piece that I had, which would show you what it would look like if I just willy-nilly continued the match and ran into the other paper at the corner. It's not really pleasant looking. Those raspberry colored leaves really look chopped off, and they run into the sunflower on the main wall. I searched through the garbage bag and found a piece that had the elements that I'm looking for to meet the main wall: the sunflower and full leaves. So I finagled this kill point, looking at the main elements of what I needed to blend better. I don't know where I'm going to cut it yet, but with such a large pattern, you never know how far you have to cut into the pattern to find a pleasing double cut. I want to show you the other type of curved archway, which is called a mouse hole archway. Notice that it's different from the one that we just did in the 126-year-old house because it doesn't have angles as it comes to meet the main wall. This one actually never meets the main wall, but also you'll find other ones that do curve into the wall and don't leave that angle. Using the light, I punch the holes for the screws with my scissor, and that's what it looks like. Now I'm going to get ready to cut at the top of the pedestal, and this pedestal is a little bit odd. You can see that it has these bumps, lumps, whatever you call them, and so it's not a clean straight across cut. So here I've got my 9mm snap off. I've got a very shallow angle and I'm using very light pressure. I don't want to start pulling bits of toilet paper loose. I stop at that little, I don't know what you call it, a flute, and make sure that it rounds it, and of course make sure that you don't pull any bits of paper off. Right here, you can see that the faucet knobs and the spigot are so close to the wall, it's very difficult to get my hand in there. So what I've done is I've extended the blade out from the 9mm cutter, and more wiping and cleaning, rinsing it out. You can't really be too clean. You don't want to get a call back 6 months from now. Someone says there's a bit of paste that dried out, oxidized, and pulled this charcoal ink off of it, because it's very difficult to repair something like that. And of course, the eyes of the customer would be very close to that to see that it was perfect. I'm doing it really slowly and really deliberately, and I can't wait to get a knife in there to make a relief cut so that there isn't any stress at that point. One last word on the subject of pedestal sinks. You are going to go to estimates where the bathroom has no toilet bowl, no pedestal sink, and the customer will say to you, do you want me to let you come in before they put the sink and toilet in, and that way it will make the job easier for you? Yes, it will make the job easier for you, but what has happened to me twice is that I did that. The plumbers came in, they banged the pedestal sink into the wallpaper as they were installing it. Of course, they didn't stop, so now the sink is installed, and what you have to do is, to repair the paper, you have to cut, and it's a mess. You have to cut around the pedestal sink, which usually has been caulked in with silicone at this point. Pattern segmentation is just a way of saying save paper or conserve paper, don't throw tons of paper away unnecessarily. Certain patterns lend themselves to segmentation, and it's important to understand the difference between the different patterns and your opportunity for cutting into the pattern. If I just did what I had mentioned before, which was to hang a piece, chop out the waist area, which is represented by the blue space, and then hang the short piece over the door, and then hang another piece, full piece, to continue, and that blue is the garbage also for that piece. You learned in an earlier section that wallpaper has a vertical repeat, which is expressed in inches or centimeters. This type of repeat is called a horizontal repeat. Here's an example of what shading looks like. It is an unpleasant change of color as one panel changes to another. The photo here is of grass cloth, and in the case of grass cloth, this is considered to be okay. In fact, it is part of, quote, the inherent beauty of this material, close quote, representation of what it would look like if I reversed every other strip. Hanging the material in this way actually does improve it. Granted, it's very exaggerated. If you can imagine a very slight difference in shading from left to right, and the way that this works is hanging dark to dark, light to light, dark to dark. You can see that it makes it blend better. The only thing is that the last piece I hung here in the sequence, I hung both of them upside down, and you see what happens, the old effect of having a jarring change of color. So with this one, the first thing I had to tell the customer was that we were going to lose the top of Greenland, but the good thing was that I could keep the tip on the bottom of South America, and also we wouldn't lose anything in Australia. So after she accepted that, I got to work laying it all out. And when you lay out one of these, now this one is an 8-panel mural, and the first thing I needed to do was to find the center of the wall, and then since these panels are short, they don't go from floor to ceiling, what I had to do was find a horizontal plumb line, or scribe a horizontal plumb line, but I also had to take into account that I had spoken with the customer about exactly where Greenland was going to be chopped off and such. So what I did was I held up Greenland, which was around panel number 2, and brought it to the top where I guess about 6 inches were going to be cut off. The panel number 1 here is actually panel number 3 in the box. Then the second panel I hang is the one directly beneath it. Also, I have a 6-foot straight edge, and rather than just use my plumb or my level, I like to get the 6-foot straight edge to line up the left side of these two panels